The impossible diplomat. The Grand Hall of the Galactic Confederation glittered with impossible light. 27 species, each masters of interstellar travel for millennia, gathered beneath the artificial nebula that served as both ceiling and chronometer. Ambassador Eliza Rice stood alone at the human delegation's platform, acutely aware of being the only representative of her kind in the immense chamber. Humanity had discovered faster-than-light travel merely 15 years ago, stumbling upon the principles of quantum folding through what the elder races considered an accident bordering on cosmic irony. The Confederation had reluctantly granted Earth observer status 3 years prior, a political position that translators euphemistically rendered as "sit quietly and learn from your betters." Eliza was not the diplomat anyone had expected to represent Earth at this critical assembly. The original ambassador, a career politician with decades of diplomatic experience, had suffered a massive stroke 2 days before departure. With no time for proper transition, the United Earth government had sent Eliza instead, a theoretical physicist who had transitioned to crisis management after helping develop Earth's first successful FTL drive. Observer Reyes came the telepathic communication from High Minister Zach Skrill, a being composed of crystalline structures arranged in roughly humanoid form. The emergency session begins momentarily. Remember your position. The unspoken message was clear. Don't speak unless spoken to. Eliza nodded respectfully while activating the neural dampener at her temple that made telepathic communication bearable to her human brain. The emergency session of the 8,423rd Galactic Confederation Assembly will now commence, announced the Assembly Director, an ancient being of pure energy contained within an ornic mechanical shell. We face unprecedented danger. The artificial nebula above shifted, displaying a three-dimensional map of the galaxy with an ominous crimson stain spreading across one spiral arm. The subspace rifts in the Orion Spur have reached critical expansion, continued the director. 17 inhabited systems have already been lost. Our projections indicate catastrophic escalation within 12 standard cycles, potentially affecting 1/3 of Confederation space. The assembled delegates murmured in their various biological and mechanical ways, a discordant symphony of concern that Eliza's translator struggled to process. High Administrator Velox of the Medusan Collective, a being that appeared as a tangled mass of iridescent tentacles, moved to the central podium. The Science Directorate has completed its analysis. The subspace rifts appear to be an unintended consequence of experimental dimensional technology deployed by the Xertal Imperium approximately 4 centuries ago. The accusation sparked immediate protest from the Xertal delegation, insectoid beings with elaborate exoskeletons that clicked and whirred as they gestured. Our dimensional research was conducted according to all established protocols. We cannot be held responsible for unforeseen consequences across centuries. Responsibility is irrelevant at this juncture, said Elder Thomas, a being so ancient that its translucent skin revealed networks of luminous energy rather than conventional biology. We must focus on containment. The Elder's appendage gestured, and the galactic display zoomed in on the spreading rifts, showing them devouring worlds in accelerated time. The Directorate has formulated a containment protocol. It will require the combined energy resources of 22 major civilizations and the controlled collapse of 5 inhabited star systems to create the subspace barrier. Eliza's blood ran cold. 5 inhabited systems meant billions of lives. The mathematics are clear, continued the Elder. This sacrifice is regrettable but necessary for galactic survival. The chamber erupted in overlapping discussions, the various species debating logistics, resource allocation, and which systems would be sacrificed. Eliza noticed something striking. No one questioned the fundamental approach. No one suggested alternatives. She reviewed the data displayed in the nebula above, her mind racing through calculations. The rift's energy signature looked familiar. Earth scientists had encountered similar theoretical problems in their early quantum experiments, problems they had solved through an entirely different approach. Without conscious decision, Eliza found herself stepping forward, crossing the invisible boundary that separated observers from full members. Automated systems highlighted her unauthorized movement, and conversations halted mid-sentence. Observer Reyes. The director's voice carried a note of reprimand. Return to your designated area. This crisis requires the expertise of established civilizations. Elisa stood her ground, heartbeat thundering in her ears. With respect, Director, I believe Earth may have relevant insight on this matter. The human world has barely achieved rudimentary interstellar capability, scoffed Administrator Velox. What could you possibly contribute that the combined wisdom of the Confederation hasn't considered? A different perspective. Eliza replied, her voice steadier than she felt. Sometimes that's exactly what's needed. The assembly fell silent, thousands of alien sensory organs focusing on the small human figure who dared interrupt their proceedings. Eliza activated her neural interface, projecting mathematical formulas and theoretical models into the shared visual space. Earth scientists encountered similar subspace instabilities in our early FTL research. But instead of trying to contain rifts once they form, we explored ways to dissolve them altogether. Your species has barely scratched the surface of dimensional theory, countered Elder Thomas. The Confederation has been manipulating subspace for over 80,000 years. Yes, Eliza acknowledged, and that might be precisely the problem. A shocked murmur ran through the assembly. Questioning the advanced knowledge of the elder species was unheard of. Explain yourself, human, demanded High Minister Zach Skrill. The Confederation approaches subspace as a fabric, something to be stretched, folded, and sealed when torn, Eliza explained, manipulating the projected models. Earth scientists developed our theories in isolation, without established galactic principles. We see subspace as a fluid dynamic system, not a static medium. The projections shifted, showing alternative approaches. Your containment solution treats the symptoms, not the cause. You're trying to build a dam against an ocean. Our models suggest these rifts aren't tiers to be sealed but pressure differentials to be equalized. You propose to add more energy to an already catastrophic situation. The Tsirtal representative's mandibles clicked rapidly in what Eliza's translator rendered as incredulous alarm. Not more energy, different energy, Eliza corrected. A controlled counter-resonance that would allow the rifts to dissipate naturally rather than expand. No sacrifice of inhabited systems required. This is absurd. The director's energy form pulsed with what seemed like anger. The human observer clearly doesn't understand the complexity of what we face. Security. Remove. Wait. The interruption came from an unexpected source. A senior Medusan scientist who had been studying Eliza's equations. There is an unusual elegance to this approach. It contradicts established principles, but the mathematics is sound. The elder Thomas moved closer, its ancient eyes studying the human projections. This would require abandoning thousands of years of established dimensional theory. Sometimes, Eliza said quietly, progress requires questioning our most fundamental assumptions. The chamber erupted into debate, many representatives dismissing the human approach outright, while others showed cautious interest. The director raised a limb of pure energy, silencing the chamber. We have protocols for such situations. The human theory will be evaluated by the Science Directorate, while we proceed with preparations for the containment protocol. Eliza shook her head. There isn't time for parallel approaches. Your own models show the rifts expanding exponentially. By the time you implement even the first phase of your containment protocol, 7 more systems will be lost. What exactly are you proposing, Observer Reyes? Asked Elder Thomas, its ancient eyes studying her with newfound interest. Eliza took a deep breath. This moment would either mark humanity's true entrance into galactic society or confirm their reputation as reckless primitives. I propose an immediate test of our theory at one of the smaller rifts. Earth's experimental vessel Prometheus is equipped with the necessary technology. We can demonstrate our approach within 2 standard cycles. And if you fail, asked High Minister Zach Skrill. Eliza met its crystalline gaze steadily. Then nothing is lost beyond what your models already predict will be destroyed. But if we succeed, we save billions of lives without sacrificing a single world. The director communicated privately with the senior representatives. After what seemed like an eternity, it addressed the assembly. The Confederation has existed for millions of years by following established protocols. Yet our greatest achievements have often come from embracing new perspectives. The director turned its attention directly to Eliza. You have 2 cycles to demonstrate your theory, Observer Reyes. A delegation of senior scientists will accompany you to ensure safety protocols are maintained. Eliza nodded, suddenly feeling the enormous weight of responsibility on her shoulders. She had just committed humanity to solving a crisis that had baffled the greatest minds in the galaxy. As the assembly dispersed, Elder Thomas approached her. In 800,000 years of Confederation history, it said quietly, no observer species has ever addressed the full assembly, let alone had their proposal accepted. You have certainly disrupted our proceedings. Sometimes disruption is exactly what's needed to break through established patterns, Eliza replied. The elder's translucent features shifted into what might have been amusement. Perhaps, but remember this, human, if your theory fails, your species standing in the Confederation will be severely diminished. And if we succeed? Eliza asked. The elder's luminous networks pulsed. Then you will have proven that sometimes the youngest voices have the most valuable things to say. It paused, studying her. Your ship, Prometheus, named after your mythological figure who brought fire to humans. Eliza nodded. An appropriate choice, the elder said. Let us hope this fire illuminates rather than burns. As the elder moved away, Eliza stood alone in the now emptying chamber, wondering whether she had just saved humanity's place in the galaxy or doomed it completely. Humanity's gambit. The experimental vessel Prometheus hung in space at the edge of the Carina Delta system, its quantum engines pulsing with a soft blue glow against the backdrop of stars. Through the main viewport, the target subspace rift shimmered like a wound in reality, a jagged tear that bent light in ways that hurt the eye to observe. The ship's bridge bustled with activity as human crew members worked alongside the delegation of alien scientists. The contrast was striking. Humans moved with quick, sometimes jerky motions, talking over each other and arguing points emphatically, while the alien delegates observed with varying degrees of concern and fascination. Your crew appears to lack proper discipline, observed Tezcor, a junior member of the Medusan delegation, its tentacles rippling with what the translator rendered as disapproval. Captain Sophia Chen, a veteran of Earth's space program with steady hands and eyes that missed nothing, smiled slightly. What you see as disorder, we call collaborative problem-solving. Everyone speaks freely because anyone might have the crucial insight we need. The Medusan's chromatophores pulsed skeptically. The Confederation has managed crises for millennia with proper hierarchical communication, and yet here we are, remarked Chief Engineer Raj Patel without looking up from his console, trying something completely different because the traditional approach would sacrifice billions of lives. Ambassador Eliza Reyes entered the bridge, accompanied by Elder Thomas and High Minister Zach Skrill. The human crew straightened slightly at her presence, while the alien scientists oriented their sensory organs toward her. Final preparations are complete, Eliza announced. The counter-resonance emitters are calibrated and ready for deployment. I have reviewed your theoretical models again, Ambassador, said Elder Thomas, its luminous networks pulsing rapidly. While mathematically sound, they rely on assumptions about subspace behavior that contradict 80,000 years of established science. With respect, Elder, Eliza replied, perhaps that's precisely why your established science hasn't solved this crisis. The Elder's translucent features shifted in what might have been concession or amusement. Human translators still struggled with the nuances of ancient species expressions. The first emitter drone is away, announced the tactical officer, Lieutenant Dias. On the main view screen, a small craft separated from the Prometheus, moving steadily toward the pulsating rift. Beginning counter-resonance sequence, reported Raj. Calibrating to match rift harmonic frequency. The drone reached its designated position and activated, projecting a field that interacted with the rift's edge. Data streamed across the bridge consoles as the human crew and alien scientists monitored the results. Initial readings are promising, said Eliza, studying the real-time analysis. The rift's energy signature is responding to the counter-resonance. Deploying second drone, announced Lieutenant Diaz. As the second drone moved into position, alarm klaxons suddenly blared across the bridge. The view screen showed the rift's behavior changing, its edges fluctuating wildly. "The rift is destabilizing," exclaimed Tezcor, its tentacles writhing in alarm. "Energy levels are increasing exponentially." "This is exactly what our models predicted would happen before catastrophic expansion," said High Minister Zach Krill, its crystalline structure flashing with what translated as urgent concern. "We must abort immediately." Captain Chen looked to Eliza, who was intently studying the data streams. "Ambassador." "Wait," Eliza said, her voice steady despite the mounting tension. "This is expected. The rift needs to destabilize before it can reharmonize." "Expected?" The High Minister's voice translated as incredulous. "Your models did not predict this level of energy surge." "That's because our models are adaptive," Raj explained without looking up from his console. "They evolve based on real-time data." "Impossible," stated Elder Thomas. "No predictive model can self-adapt to unknown variables without pre-programmed parameters." "Ours can," Eliza said simply. "That's the difference in our approach. We don't try to control every variable. We build systems that learn and adjust." On the view screen, the rift's violent fluctuations reached a crescendo, its edges pulsating with impossible colors. "Energy levels at 320% of baseline," reported Lieutenant Diaz, her voice tense but controlled. "Structural integrity of drones at 62% and falling." "Maintain position," ordered Captain Chen. "How long until harmonization, Chief Engineer?" Raj's fingers flew across his interface. "Theoretical models suggest we should see resonant collapse beginning in approximately 47 seconds. "The drones won't last that long at current degradation rates," Lieutenant Diaz warned. High Minister Zach Krill's crystalline form vibrated with alarm. "This experiment has failed, Ambassador. If we don't withdraw now, we risk accelerating the rift's expansion exponentially." Eliza studied the data streams, her mind racing through calculations and possibilities. "The counter-resonance is working, but we need to stabilize the fluctuation curve." She turned to Raj. "What if we invert the phase on the second drone?" "Invert?" Raj looked startled, then thoughtful. "That would create interference patterns we didn't account for in the original models." "Exactly," Eliza said. "The rift isn't responding quite as we predicted. It's more fluid, less rigid. If we create controlled interference, we might be able to dampen the energy spikes." "This is madness," protested Tezcor. "You're improvising solutions to a catastrophic subspace event." "That's what humans do," Captain Chen said calmly. "We adapt." Eliza nodded to Raj. "Invert the phase." The chief engineer implemented the commands, and the view screen showed the second drone's energy field shifting, changing its interaction with the rift. For several tense seconds, nothing seemed to happen. Then, gradually, the violent fluctuations began to subside. The rift's edges stopped pulsating and started to curl inward, like a piece of burning paper consuming itself from the edges. "It's working," whispered Lieutenant Diaz. "Energy levels decreasing by 15%, now 27%, continuing to fall." The bridge fell silent as humans and aliens alike watched the rift slowly collapse in on itself, the tear in subspace healing before their eyes. Within minutes, where the dangerous anomaly had existed, only normal space remained. "Remarkable," said Elder Thomas, breaking the silence. Its ancient eyes studied the readings on the nearest console. "The rift hasn't merely been contained, It has been completely dissipated. And the solution is scalable, Eliza noted, displaying projections on the main screen. With more drones and refined calibrations, we can target larger rifts using the same principles. High Minister Zach Skrill's crystalline form had stopped its alarmed vibration. You changed your approach mid-implementation. The original plan failed, yet you succeeded through improvisation. That's the human advantage, Captain Chen said. We don't expect perfect models. We build flexible systems and adapt when circumstances change. An unprecedented approach to subspace physics, acknowledged Elder Thomas. Your species thinks in ways the Confederation has not considered for millennia. Perhaps, suggested Eliza carefully, that's why the universe needed humanity to join the galactic community. Not despite our youth, but because of it. 3 standard cycles later, Eliza stood once again before the full Galactic Confederation Assembly. This time, she wasn't relegated to the observer section. She stood at the central podium, addressing the assembled representatives of 27 spacefaring civilizations. The counter-resonance technology has successfully closed 17 rifts across the affected regions, she reported. The remaining anomalies have been stabilized and are scheduled for treatment within the next cycle. The director's energy form pulsed with what the translator rendered as approval. The Confederation acknowledges Earth's pivotal contribution to resolving this crisis. In recognition of humanity's unique perspective and demonstrated capabilities, this assembly will now vote on granting Earth full membership status, an unprecedented acceleration from observer to member. The vote was not unanimous. Several ancient species still harbored reservations about elevating such a young civilization so quickly, but the majority carried. Earth would now have a voice in galactic affairs equal to species that had traveled the stars when humans were still using stone tools. As the assembly concluded, Elder Thomas approached Eliza. In my 800,000 years, I have rarely been so thoroughly surprised. Is that good or bad? Eliza asked with a small smile. Both, perhaps, the elder replied. Your solution worked, but the methodology behind it challenges fundamental principles the Confederation has operated on for eons. Many species find this unsettling. Change often is, Eliza acknowledged. Indeed. The elder's luminous networks pulsed thoughtfully. I wonder what other established truths humanity might question in the coming centuries. That's the exciting part, isn't it? Eliza said, not knowing what we'll discover next. As Eliza prepared to return to the Prometheus, she received a private communication from the director. Ambassador Reyes, its energy form communicated directly. The Confederation faces numerous other challenges that have resisted traditional approaches. Will humanity be interested in applying your unique perspective to some of these matters? Eliza smiled. Earth would be honored to help, Director. After all, that's what members of the Confederation do. We face the galaxy's challenges together. As the Prometheus departed for Earth, bearing news of humanity's new status in the galactic community, Eliza stood at the viewport watching the stars. Their lights seemed brighter somehow, now that humanity had proven they belonged among them, not as observers, but as equals. Human researchers were already developing new applications based on their subspace discoveries. The Confederation scientists were reluctantly adapting their theoretical models to incorporate Earth's perspectives. And across the galaxy, other young species watched with hope as the door to full participation in galactic affairs, previously closed for millennia of observation, opened just a little wider. The universe, it seemed, still had room for new ideas, and humanity was just getting started.